My reaction both to the Grammys and to what was, for me, this morning, the State of the Union, the first State of our Union with our President, Mr. Donald Trump. Next, here on Jinka Jabo. So really, I lied when I said I was going to talk much about the Grammys, because who cares? Nobody watched it, except for Michael Knowles, and he had a great analysis on the Daily Wire. In terms of the political messages that are just blatantly behind it and everything, it's sort of like the anything Hollywood. And something came out of my hometown, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where one of our Grammy winners, the great Justin Vernon of Bon Iver, was complaining about the music featured on the Grammys this year, and that really is it. More than just the pandering and the political ideology that was expressed, it was also just a sad year for music. Even though, to counter what Mr. Vernon said, I happen to like Bruno Mars a lot, and I'm glad he's still winning awards, but at the same time, what's new? One trumpeter that I really got into just this last couple of months is Herb Alpert. And he's the only Grammy winner, if I'm remembering this correctly, who actually had a #1 for both vocals and for instrumental. And his instrumental track that won was just incredible. Rise is what it was called. And I found this at random. I was actually on a Chuck Mangione kick, and I heard this and I thought it was really cool. And I thought, yeah, okay, it's still not Mozart exactly, but this is good music, and you can see how it's changed. But the reason I bring it up at all is because it had a spot with Hillary Clinton. They crawled her out of her Chardonnay-induced coma, and they had her read passages out of Fire and Fury, which I'm more than halfway through. I'm about done. It's a bit of a tedious book, but it does have its entertaining parts. And she read one part that I actually read and highlighted, and it was about Trump preferring McDonald's because they don't know that he's going to show up, and he likes the food there. He knows what to expect. And they read this as this great laughter, this great jab at him, when really, in all practical terms, it makes sense. A great thing about reading this book, and even though I'm not finished with it yet, I'll do my review soon, is that it's just all the best tabloid gossip stuff. It's like the White House is so full of characters right now that it's hard not to love it, and it's hard not to pay attention. Like it's some great soap opera. This is it's like Trump has finally outdone Mark Burnett after giving Mark Burnett his best reality show of all time, which is the only history of Trump that I really knew before the election, which I thought was amazing. But I digress. One bad thing that's come from this, I think it was Michael Knowles who spoiled it for me, is that this book eventually leads to Nikki Haley and Donald Trump having an affair, which is not substantiated at all. And I'm looking forward to that part in the same way that I look forward to parts in, gosh, I admit I watched soap operas when I was a teenager. It was Passions, I remember, was back in the day. We all watched it down in Madison. Dating myself, I'm quite old. But I just want to I'm looking forward to this part of the book, and I hope that it doesn't ruin it for me too much. But again, it was just hilarious to see Hillary, of all people, at the Grammys reading this book that's just tabloid fiction. It's all hearsay with a smattering of current events or well-timed events to frame it in reality, at least. I'll talk about that book in detail later. But just to have her reading this, like, what is her place there? What's the point? Is it because all the artists that they have chosen to win these colorful awards are Democrats, just like she is? Anyway, I've already talked about that way too much. I needed to talk about the State of the Union with Mr. Trump. And it was absolutely theatric, as anything we would expect. And one thing I caught it was amazing. I was able to see it live this morning. I was sitting in bed, and I had the projector going, and I was able to see it in full color, to see in full glory God Emperor Trump, I use that ironically, the president at this time, point out his accomplishments to a grimacing, brooding, unhappy crowd. We had Nancy Pelosi sitting there with her arms crossed, just not even caring. And it was amazing. I've seen State of the Unions all my life because I've always been interested in watching politics, even since I was very little. And my family got me into it. One of my older brothers in particular has always been interested in politics. And so just like watching sports games together, we would get into this and we'd know all the people behind it and all that. But this is the first time, I think, in years and years where I've been able to name every single person in the audience as it was coming up to them. Not every single person, of course, but all the important figures and to say what their position was and everything. And it was hilarious to see the divide between left and right and how Trump was always, I'm not sure if it was filmed this way or what. It was Fox News cameras. It wasn't open to the public, but they seemed to show him always facing the right. And Nancy Pelosi was just, she was the star of the show. It wasn't Donald Trump. It was her sitting there just brooding and grimaced. And all of the great Democratic characters in this reality TV show that we call Capitol Hill that's happening right now in my country. It was just beautiful. But I admit at the very beginning I was quite bored, and I actually turned it on and thought I'm going to watch this right now. It seemed like these things always go on too long, and there's always way too much stuff happening. But it was also good for me to see it without any commentary first. I went back and saw some of the commentary, but a lot of it's late in coming at this point. But of course, Trump, as I have brought up before, and I guess I'm not sure how much truth there is, because I know people and close family who are complaining about the taxes right now. But I'm wondering, he's making all these claims about unemployment records and the stock market and everything, getting loud cheers and almost a Arsenio Hall-esque USA, USA, USA chant at the end. I just always think of Idiocracy. It's cliche at this point to reference that movie. It's already quite old now, but we're almost to Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew. Herbert Camacho, I think that's his full name, giving the audience the finger and just resorting to just using casual profanity, which is basically what we have already anyways. Noted, I am still working on trying to eliminate profanity not just on this channel, but my ordinary day-to-day speech, so kudos for that. I'll look back at this as self-condemnation later. Anyway, Trump, of course, and they all do this same pandering, every single politician in history, and this is why I think the Fox News commentators were saying it didn't have much Bannon to it, because it was written in a classically Republican, not just classically Republican, I guess classically political way of just pointing to individuals and praising their accomplishments and talking about how good his systems, how good his policies have made our country. And from what I can see, from the numbers I've looked at, as someone who, I've lived internationally for so many years now, I'm not even really part of that, but just from what I've heard, from what I've seen, I think it has had a good impact on taxes with the middle class. But I would love anyone to correct me, because I am not 100% solid in any of these beliefs, and I want anyone who sees that to realize that, who watches this to realize that. He saved, of course, the best for last, and this is what I thought was Bannon-esque, which almost made me think that Trump was more Bannon than Bannon. Of course, the language and the tone that we associate with Bannon, I think, is very much on the side of Trump. And I say that when he brought out in the very end both the parents of Otto Warmbier, the American held captive, beaten, and returned home in a coma, who later died, as well as a North Korean defector now living in Seoul. And after doing all this, he's honoring veterans and workers and stuff, and it's very positive. And all the people have different reactions. I could tell, like, there was one guy he honored who was given salutes and thumbs up, and he was just cheering and stuff to get to the final act of the State of the Union, I would say, which would be the Warmbiers. And at that point, father and mother are just crying, and they're standing up and they're kind of clapping, and you could just feel the love of the entire nation. You could feel the love of anyone watching pouring towards them. And I thought that was a very beautiful moment. And that really built to, I mean, that was part of the crescendo. That was was the first splash of it. And then he brings out the North Korean defector, talks about how his train crushed his leg, and he finally escaped to China and made it out, and like he's working on all these efforts to help North Koreans escape from that horrible regime. And he kept his crutches. I understand you still have those crutches, Mr. Trump said. And the defector, this Korean man, he holds up the crutches, and everyone just goes crazy. And it was just the most brilliant reality TV. Finally, one of these is interesting. It was almost over the top, just like when I was very little, and my family used to joke about this, like I really liked the Donahue Show, because I just liked the idea of just someone going crazy and just walking around the audience and interviewing people, and it seems so outrageous. But then to compare that not only to what became of daytime TV and reality TV, and then finally to this grand apex of this grand zenith of our reality TV movement. These are all a bunch of words. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just very excited about the whole thing, and I'm very optimistic about America's future. And it feels good to talk about America some more. And I've got some book reviews coming up. I've been sitting on Shattered, the Amy Parnes Jonathan Allen book, which I finished like a month ago, and it was really good, but I still haven't reviewed that. But expect that coming up, and then also Fire and Fury, to tie us back to what I was saying about the Grammys. And just keep watching, because 2018 is already turning out to be an amazing media year, and there's no telling what's going to happen next. So thank you so much for watching. Hello to all my new subscribers, and peace.